If you enjoy our content and think this is important material, the best compliment you can pay is by sharing this with your friends and family. This helps us out a lot. Also, if you enjoyed today's program, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to this podcast. We would love to hear from you. Welcome to the Truth in My Days podcast, where we defend the Word of God against the challenges of men.
Hello, today we have Sonia interviewing John about whether Genesis 1's Hebrew can accommodate the earth being old. We are continuing from the previous episode today. We hope you enjoy.
Well, Heiser did say that the Masoretes did pick Bereshit instead of Ba-Reshit. And he says, well, so you have to go with that. But really, we're talking about scholars who did get things wrong, doing this 1,000 years, more than 1,000 years after the original writing. But it's a moot point. Okay? It's absolutely a moot point. If we would put onto it the weight that Heiser wants to put onto it, then Bereshit would become in a beginning, not in the beginning.
Well, that what does that even mean, in a beginning?
Well, we'll get to that in a moment. But do you understand? It cannot turn it into when.
Oh, okay.
He said, well, if it's Bereshit, it's in the beginning. But if it's Bereshit, it's when God created. No. The only difference would be in the beginning God created versus in a beginning God created. And it's not true. He's trying to tell you that, it has to have the vowel for awe, for it to be in the beginning. But if you look through the Bible, you find that that's not the case at all. They didn't seem to have followed this rule, neither the Masoretes nor the Bible, this rule that Heiser insists on. Apparently, they were quite happy with Bereshit to be the beginning, particularly if the context would show that. If you look at Jeremiah 26:1, for example, what does it say?
In the beginning of the reign of Jehoiakim, the son of Josiah, king of Judah, this word came from the Lord, saying...
Okay, how many reigns did Jehoiakim have?
I suppose one.
One. So how many beginnings of the reign of Jehoiakim were there?
One.
So this must be in the beginning, right, of the reign of Jehoiakim?
Yeah.
But it says Bereshit, not Bereshit. Heiser told us that it would have to be Bereshit, right? What about Jeremiah 27:1? Can you read that for us?
In the beginning of the reign of Jehoiakim, the son of Josiah, king of Judah, this word came to Jeremiah from the Lord, saying...
Yeah, here we go again. The beginning of the reign of Jehoiakim, the son of Josiah. There's just one beginning. Therefore, it's the beginning, yet the Hebrew says Bereshit, not Bereshit. Jeremiah 28:1.
And it happened in the same year at the beginning of the reign of Zedeka, king of Judah, in the 4th year and in the 5th month.
The beginning of the reign of Zedeka, king of Judah. How many reigns did Zedekiah have?
One.
So how many beginnings would there be?
One.
So would this be at the beginning of the reign?
Yes.
And yet it says Bereshit, not Bereshit in the Hebrew. What about Jeremiah 49:34?
The word of the Lord that came to Jeremiah the prophet against Elam in the beginning of the reign of Zedekiah, king of Judah, saying...
There we go. Zedekiah had only one reign, only one beginning. So it's in the beginning. Translate it that way. I doubt that. I doubt that Heiser would want to translate it as anything else, and yet it says Bereshit.
Well, could somebody argue that it's a peculiarity of the book of Jeremiah only?
You can find examples in other books as well. So no, you couldn't. And then you'd have to find, on the flip side, Heiser would have to proffer examples to the contrary to back up what he says. He doesn't do that. He simply makes the claim that to be in the beginning would have to be Bereshit. He gives no examples to that effect, whereas we've given counterexamples the other way. So you'd think that, really, he should be checking, shouldn't he?
Yeah, you would think so, unless... Like you said, unless he thinks that the claims of the scientists cannot be challenged, so he's desperately trying to make it fit.
Well, I have made the point that I think the reason there are so many attempts by evangelicals to bring in old age as billions of years is because of this mistaken idea that science has shown the earth to be billions of years old.
But clearly Heiser's retranslation of Genesis 1 doesn't work.
No, as we've seen, it doesn't work. And None of the others do, actually. What Genesis 1 says is very clear, and none of the attempts to get around it will work. Even the original one, the one that started when scientists began claiming that the earth was tens of thousands of years old, some Christians came up with what they call the gap theory. But the Hebrew also rules out any possible gap theory.
What is the gap theory?
The gap theory was an attempt to bring in lots of extra time into the Genesis account. And the way this worked was to claim that there was a gap between Genesis 1:1 and Genesis 1:2. So we read, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. And then there's supposedly this long, long period of time before we get to verse 2. The earth was without form and void, and darkness was on the face of the deep. So the idea is, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Long, long gap, fitting in how much time you need. The earth was without form and void. So that's the gap theory. It has different versions and iterations. Some of them would try to translate verse 2 differently. They would say the earth was without form, became void. And they end up packing this entire long history into it where Satan rebels and is cast down onto good earth that had been going on for a long, long, long time. And then there was this rebellion and God destroyed the earth that then was. And then you get to verse 2 where he now begins to recreate. So they pack an awful lot into this gap that is completely unjustified by anything in the text.
Yeah, it sounds kind of far-fetched.
It is far-fetched, and again, the reason was out of a false apprehension that science has proven the earth is, well, in those days, hundreds of thousands of years old, now supposedly billions of years old. But again, if you take the text seriously, it doesn't work for it. First of all, you cannot translate verse 2 as the earth became void. It became without form.
So it's not like an equivalent verb. Like I know there is a verb in Greek where you could translate it as a form of to be, or you could also translate as become. This is not such an equivalent verb in the Hebrew.
Well, it is a similar verb that it could be translated as one or the other depending on the context. But here, as we've pointed out before, what you have is a vav adversative comment inserted, where you have the vav stuck not onto a verb but onto the noun, followed then by this verb haya. And when you have that structure, when you have the vav plus noun plus haya, it's always was. It's never became. So it's just not allowed to the translation here. And the other thing that we've pointed out is the standard form of historical narrative in Hebrew is where you start with the opening statement with a cal perfect verb followed by these vav imperfects. And these are actions that follow one after the other. You really can't start with a cal perfect and then have billions of years before you get to the first vav imperfect. It just doesn't work that way. So it can't be done if you look at the Hebrew, and there's no reason to do it. So the Hebrew simply does not allow gap theory. It does not allow Heiser's retranslation. It doesn't allow for day age. It doesn't allow for days that are longer than one Earth rotation. So that's the way it is. You either accept it or you don't.
Okay, so our view of Genesis 1 is based only on the Bible, and science doesn't enter into the picture at all then, right?
Well, I wouldn't want to say that. I think science can help us to understand. The difference is science can elucidate what the Hebrew says. It cannot controvert it. It cannot overturn it or deny it. Now, we have to accept the account as it is, God creating the world and the things in it in 6 24-hour days or Earth rotation days as described. However, I think what we've discovered from science can certainly help elucidate. So here are some of the things that I would bring into the description from science. Now, it starts with verse 1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was without form and void, and darkness was on the face of the deep. So, the first thing I want to point out here is the verbs used in Genesis 1. As you read through the account, you'll find certain times it says God created. Okay? You will have that in verse 1, right at the very beginning. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. It's a Hebrew verb that's bara, created. It's an action that only God does. And you don't find that again until verse 21, where God creates the living creatures. And you'll have it again twice in verse 27 when God creates man. As you look through the rest of it, what do you see? You see God speaking, let there be and there was. Or let the earth bring forth, and it was. Let the waters abound, and it was so. And 3 times as well, you'll find this other verb, made, asa. 4 times. You'll find it in verse 7, and verse 16, and verse 25, and in verse 31. God made. And there's a connection between them. In verse 6, it says, God said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters. Let it divide the waters from the waters. Thus God made the firmament and divided the waters. So there's a let there be, but also a statement that God made it. Then if you jump ahead into verse 14, God said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heavens. And it was so. But then it goes on to say, then God made 2 great lights, okay, which are the sun and the moon. So God made, and the verb here is asa. And asa is a word that is often used of human action. Asa has the sense of building something or taking some pre-existing matter and reshaping or reforming it into something else. For example, if you build a house, you take bricks, you take lumber, glass, windows, whatever, you can make a house, asa. But humans do not do bara. That's an act that's unique to God.
And you said that one appears 3 times?
Appears, well, technically 4 times in 3 verses. When it talks about creating man, it appears there twice where God says, let us create man in our image. And then it says, in the image of God, he created him. So it is there twice.
Thank you, everyone, for listening today. Unfortunately, we have run out of time, but please join us for the next part, same time and same place. Thank you for listening to the Truth in My Days podcast with John Torse. We would love to hear from you. Please feel free to share any questions or comments you may have. You can reach us on Facebook, Instagram, MeWe, and YouTube. Simply search Truth in My Days as one word. Again, Truth in My Days as one word, no spaces in between. And you can connect with us. You may also visit our website for more comprehensive material and to learn more about our ministry. Our website is truthinmydays.com. Thank you.